Okay. Vita. I'm gonna show y'all boys where I'm from, man. I'm from.
What it do, still with the cap shot like a lamb. Big boss, K-Po, talk boxing, fucking my soliloquy. Remember, tough times don't last. Good people do, don't off yourself, man. Call that mental health hotline. Remember your matter. Peak game, 84s on one swing. 988 is the number. That's top boxing. Pray for me and my family, bro. Now, according to BoxingNews247.com, y'all know that's my number one source of boxing news. Excuse me. It's rumored that Vergil Ortiz versus Keith Thurman, right, and Frank Martin versus Arnold Barboza, which would be the co-main, right, are in the works. They talking, right? It's looking like they trying to make this happen. They trying to make a PBC and Golden Boy card, right? PBC versus Golden Boy. And De La Hoya kind of mentioned in the past on one of his clapback Thursdays, or whatever he called it, pause, that, you know, Al Heyman and Bob Bam and him ain't going nowhere. They trying to work together, which they should have been doing, but they trying to work together, you know, because Turkey, you know, coming into the game with them sheets and with money, and, you know, he trying to take over boxing, you know what I'm saying? So, but I love this. I'm not gonna lie to you, I love it. I think that PBC do a phenomenal job at putting on excellent fight cards, and for them to work with Golden Boy, I feel like it's a good look, right? You got Keith Thurman versus Vergil Ortiz, which I feel like is a fire fight. It's a clash on styles. You got the veteran versus, you know, basically the young pup in the game, right? It's an interesting fight. Vergil Ortiz got power. He's coming off a dominant performance against Majimov. And I'm interested to see how he gonna deal with Keith Thurman. I'm also interested to see how Keith Thurman gonna deal with Vergil Ortiz. You know, what is he gonna try to utilize? What is his fighting style gonna be like? You know what I mean? I'm guessing he gonna be looking to move around and box, but he gonna have to stand his ground with Vergil Ortiz and Spurs. So he gonna have to fight a complete fight, you know. You got the battle-tested veteran versus the rookie. You know what I mean? That's what it is. I still look at Vergil Ortiz as a rookie. You know what I mean? But it's a perfect crossover fight for Vergil Ortiz because it helps build his brand and build his name even more, putting him in there with a Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman, I believe, is 36 years old, 36, 37 years old. So he's kind of in the later half of his career. He's won the big fights, and I feel like this will be a big fight. You know what I mean? So we shall see, you know, if they're able to get this over the hill. But I do love this fight. I'm not going to lie to you. It's very good for boxing. This is what I be talking about good fights. That stuff Turkey be doing, I just, you know, besides that November card, I got to give him credit for that. But other than that, like, the stuff he be doing is retarded. Like, I be like, bro, why did you do that? Why did you make that fight? Like, nobody asked for that fight. Why did you have the fighter driving into the stadium? Like, what was the point of that? Pure boxing just want simple boxing events. These dudes can fight in the middle of 45. I don't, you know, that's a freeway in Houston. You know, I don't care. As long as there's a ring there, you know, that's all I ask for. You know what I mean? We just want the simple things. And, you know, pure boxing just want simplicity. We don't need all the extra, you know, Eminem rapping at halftime, ring men, and this man had a ring man. I still ain't forgot that. That boy tweaking. All I'm saying at the end of the day is that though we just want simplicity in the motor boxing. PBC definitely does that. Frank Martin versus Arnold Barboza. I love that fight as well, right? It's the unknown because we don't know what style Frank Martin, you know, gonna have. You know what I'm saying? We don't know if he's completely changed his style. Is it the same, you know, or is it the same and he just added a little wrinkle, you know, to it? We don't know, but I'm interested to see how he gonna deal with Arnold Barboza, a guy who is a career 140-pounder, battle-tested, Coming off a loss though to Teofimo Lopez, a dominant loss, but this is his opportunity to get his name back in the fold, beating a Frank Martin whose first fight is at 140. So, like I said, it's a good matchup. You know what I mean? I'm very, very intrigued to see how, you know, Frank Martin gonna deal with Arnold Barboza. You know, that's not no easy fight for him. You know what I'm saying? So we shall see. You know, I think Frank Martin has the faster hands. But like I say, it's a good clash on styles. We shall see how this thing goes. Now, truthfully, right? This is another thing, another wrinkle that they could put on here, because they talking about this card, right? I wouldn't mind putting Errol Spence on this card, right? Hear me out. It's rumored, you know, they want to make, Oscar De La Hoya wants to make Vergil Ortiz versus Errol Spence. So why not have a backstory, right? Because you got two fighters who were linked to Errol Spence in the past, right? What do you mean? Vergil Ortiz being linked to Errol Spence, and Keith Thurman, who Errol Spence been wanting to fight for the longest time. Now, Errol is a man of integrity. He said he won't fight Keith Thurman, but maybe he'll have a change of heart. You know what I mean? Because Errol, like, he don't budge. Like, he like, I'm not fighting that dude. He ain't give me an opportunity, so why should I give him an opportunity? But maybe, since he's coming off that loss, you know, Keith Thurman is kind of proving himself at 154. You know, it's more or less like, maybe he'll fight Keith Thurman, right? So, if Keith Thurman beats Vergil Ortiz, right? And you put Errol Spence on the undercard, or maybe like the co-main event, right? Because right now they got Frank Martin on the co-main event. So maybe if Errol decides he want to fight, he comes back on the co-main event and fights a Brian Castano or Brian Mendoza, right? And let's just say Errol Spence wins his fight. That can set up a possible matchup between him and Keith Thurman, or him and Vergil Ortiz. You got the backstory there, right? Which is something that we need in the sport of boxing now, because Turk don't have backstories no more. He's eliminated that in the sport of boxing. You could be a 135-pounder, and then he'll put you up in there against a 168-pounder. That's how Turk moving, right? He not trying to get you to fight top fighters in your weight class. He wants these fantasy fights, right? So all I'm saying at the end of the day, to keep it 1,000, it's like this. You got a perfect backstory. Have Errol Spence be on the co-main. And then if he wins his fight, okay, then you could decide based off how he looked in that fight, okay, boom. After that, you'll fight the winner of, you know, Keith Thurman, Vergil Ortiz. Or you give him a little bit more time, right? Which is like, hey, you'll fight another tune-up. So you fought this tune-up, you have to fight another tune-up, right? And then you'll fight Vergil Ortiz. But we need you, like, back in the ring within, like, 4 months. You know, we'll give you, like, 4 months off, but we need you back in the ring. You know what I mean? Because we want to get these fights pumped out. Pause. And that's what that is. You know what I'm saying? And I think Errol be up to that. But it's all up to Errol if he gonna come back. Now, do he gotta come back? Not necessarily. But, you know, Errol did everything he needs to do for fight fans. But I think that when it boils down to it, that would be a fire card if Errol Spence come back as the co-main event. Vergil Ortiz, Keith Thurman could be the main event. Errol Spence come back as the co-main event. Fight a Brian Castano or whatever, Brian Mendoza. You know, two competitors who have competed for championships. Brian Castano competed for undisputed at 154 twice. And I think that, you know, depending on how Errol looks in this fight, you know, if Errol looks, you know, dominant, then, hey, you know, who can put that fight next against the winner. You know what I'm saying? Put the winner of that fight next against the winner of Keith Thurman versus Vergil Ortiz. You know what I mean? Which the bigger fight is Keith Thurman, in my opinion. the bigger fight in boxing will be Keith Thurman and Errol Spence, because that's the fight like we kind of been wanting to see for the longest time. Low key, high key. Ain't no low key. But the biggest fight in Texas, you know what I'm saying, would be Vergil Ortiz versus Errol Spence. You know, Texas wise, Vergil Ortiz versus Errol Spence is a big fight. But boxing wise, Keith Thurman versus Errol Spence will be the bigger fight. You know what I'm saying? So we shall see. You know what I mean? How this thing goes. But the real rumored fight card is Keith Thurman versus Vergil Ortiz, Frank Martin versus Arnold Barboza. You know, it's gonna be a PBC versus Golden Boy card if it's signed, sealed, or delivered. Let's hope and pray that they get this fight card done. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Let's go.